The cowboy refused to take gold on Apache land. 14 years later, the tribe repaid him. Jack McAllister was not an ordinary man. He had a tall, lean frame, a sun-weathered face, and eyes that seemed to look right into a person's soul. He had grown up on the open plains, learning the ways of horses, cattle, and the land from his father. Unlike many men of his time, Jack had a strong sense of right and wrong. He believed that a person's character mattered more than wealth or fame, and this belief guided him through life. It was the spring of 1882 when Jack decided to leave his small town and explore the lands further west. He had heard stories of gold hidden in the rugged territories beyond the mountains, and many men were heading there, hoping to strike it rich. But Jack was not chasing gold for greed. He was curious about the world and wanted to see it with his own eyes. He wanted adventure, but he also wanted to stay true to himself. As he rode his horse through the dusty trails, he noticed the land was beautiful in its wildness. Tall grasses swayed in the wind, rivers sparkled in the sunlight, and the mountains stood like silent guardians over the valleys. Jack respected the land, knowing that it was alive in its own way. Unlike some of the prospectors he had heard about who would dig and take without care, Jack believed in taking only what was fair and leaving the land as it was. One afternoon, after traveling for days, Jack reached a part of the land he had never seen before. It was quiet and untouched, with a feeling of peace that he rarely found in the world. As he rode through a narrow canyon, his horse suddenly stopped and snorted. Jack looked around and noticed something shining under a pile of rocks. Curious, he dismounted and walked closer. There, hidden in the shade of a large boulder, was a small stash of gold nuggets. Jack's heart raced. Gold. Real gold. He could see the sunlight reflecting off each nugget, and he knew that many men would have risked everything to get it. He reached out and held one in his hand. It was heavier than he expected and warm from the sun. A man in his position could become rich overnight. Many would have taken it without a second thought. But as he held the gold, Jack looked around. He remembered the stories he had heard from travelers about this land. It belonged to the Apache tribe, a proud people who had lived here for generations. This gold was not theirs to take, it was theirs to guard. Jack felt a strange mix of excitement and unease. The temptation was strong, but his conscience was stronger. He could not take what did not belong to him. Jack camped nearby that night, thinking about his next move. He could hear the distant sounds of nature, the wind through the trees, the soft murmur of a river, the calls of birds returning to their nests. It reminded him that he was a guest here, in a land that had its own rules and rhythms. He knew that the Apache people would not be pleased if they discovered someone taking their gold. Respecting them meant more than any wealth he could carry. The next morning, Jack rode deeper into the land, hoping to meet the people who lived there. After a long ride, he came across a small village. Smoke rose from the chimneys of simple huts, and children played near the river. Jack approached cautiously, raising a hand in greeting. The villagers paused and stared at him, wary of strangers. But Jack had learned to show respect in his actions as well as his words. He spoke softly, bowed slightly, and made clear that he meant no harm. Soon Jack met the village leader, a wise man named Chief Tyan. Tyan was tall and strong, with eyes that were kind but discerning. He studied Jack carefully, as if trying to see what kind of man he was. Jack explained that he had discovered some gold in the hills, but he had not touched it. He told Tyan that he believed it belonged to the Apache people, and that he would not take it for himself. The chief listened quietly. A few villagers murmured among themselves, clearly surprised that a stranger could be so honest.
Biology is.
In those times, many outsiders had come to the land with greed in their hearts. They would have taken the gold without hesitation, caring little for the people who lived there. But Jack was different. His honesty and respect were clear, and it did not go unnoticed. Tyan nodded slowly, and a small smile appeared on his face. "You have a good heart, traveler," he said. "Many men would have taken what is not theirs. You have chosen the right path."
Jack felt a sense of relief.
He had not acted out of fear or expectation of reward. He had simply done what he believed was right. Yet the chief's words made him realize that integrity was recognized even in a world filled with greed. The villagers welcomed Jack with simple food and a place to rest. Over the next few days, he learned more about their lives. They were hard-working and close to the land, living with a harmony that Jack admired. They shared stories of their ancestors, teaching Jack about the mountains, rivers, and sacred places that held great importance to them. Jack listened carefully, feeling honored to be in their presence.
As he spent time with the tribe, Jack began to understand something important.
The gold he had found was not merely metal, it was part of the land's spirit, part of the tribe's history. To take it would have been to break a bond, to disrespect a people who had cared for this land for generations. Jack realized that true wealth was not measured in gold, but in trust, respect, and the friendships he was forming. When it was time for Jack to leave, he felt a sense of peace. He had resisted temptation, honored the Apache people, and learned valuable lessons about life. The gold remained untouched, shining quietly under the hills, waiting for those who would honor it. Jack mounted his horse and waved goodbye to Chief Tyan and the villagers. Their smiles stayed with him as he rode back to the open plains, carrying something far more valuable than gold: knowledge, integrity, and a connection to a people he would never forget. Even as he traveled away, Jack often thought of the gold in the land. He wondered how many other men would have taken it, and felt pride in himself for choosing differently. The story of his honesty would later become a quiet legend, though Jack himself did not seek fame. He simply knew that some things were worth more than wealth, and that respect for others and for the land was priceless. Jack's journey continued, but the lessons he learned on Apache land stayed with him forever. They shaped the man he became, a man who valued integrity above all else, who respected the land and its people, and who understood that true wealth could not always be carried in a bag or counted in coins. The world might have been filled with greed, but Jack McAllister proved that one person could make the right choice, even when no one was watching. And so, the story of Jack's arrival on Apache land ended not with treasure gained, but with a treasure of the heart, a lesson in honesty and respect that would echo through time, waiting for the day it would be repaid in ways he could never imagine. Jack McAllister had always known that his decision to leave the gold untouched would not be easy to explain to others. Most people he met in his travels thought only of wealth and how quickly they could get it. When Jack returned to the outskirts of the Apache land, he encountered a group of settlers who had been searching for the same gold. Their eyes widened when they saw Jack riding alone, with nothing but his worn horse and simple belongings. "What happened?" one of them demanded. "Where's the gold? Did you take it?" Jack looked at the man calmly and shook his head.
"I did not take it," he said. "It does not belong to me."
"That gold is on Apache land. It is not mine to claim." The men laughed, their voices harsh and full of disbelief. "You mean to tell us you passed up all that wealth?" another man asked. "You could have been rich beyond imagination." Jack nodded. "Yes, I passed it up. I could not take what was not mine. Respect for others and for the land is more important than gold." Their laughter turned into scorn. They called him a fool, a man with no ambition. "You'll regret this," one said, spitting onto the ground. "No one refuses gold and lives to be happy." Jack merely smiled, knowing they would never understand. They lived in a world driven by greed, and their hearts were weighed down by desire. Jack, however, felt a freedom that money could never buy. By refusing the gold, he had preserved his peace of mind, his integrity, and the trust of the Apache people. As he continued his journey, Jack thought often about the village he had left behind. He remembered Chief Tyan's eyes, wise, kind, yet watchful. He remembered the laughter of children playing by the river, and the songs sung by the villagers around the fire at night. Jack realized that those few days had taught him more than months spent working on his own land ever could. He had learned about humility, respect, and the importance of doing what is right, even when the world tells you otherwise. In the weeks that followed, Jack traveled through different towns and settlements, helping where he could. He mended fences for struggling farmers, helped herd cattle for those who were too old or too young to manage alone, and shared his knowledge of survival in the wild. People began to notice Jack's reputation as an honest and skilled man. Some sought his advice, others simply respected the way he lived. Despite his growing reputation, Jack never spoke of the gold. To him, it was not a story of pride but a lesson of life. He had chosen integrity over wealth, and he carried that choice quietly in his heart. However, the memory of the villagers and the land often haunted him, not in a troubling way, but as a gentle reminder of the world beyond his own desires. One afternoon, while Jack was helping a farmer repair a broken fence, a young boy approached him. The boy had heard stories about Jack's journey through the West and about his encounter with the Apache.
Is it true? The boy asked, eyes wide. Did you really find gold and leave it? Jack smiled and nodded.
Yes, he said. I found gold, but it was not mine. Taking it would have been wrong. There are things more valuable than wealth, and respect is one of them. The boy looked thoughtful. I hope I can be like you when I grow up, he said. Jack ruffled the boy's hair gently. You already have it in you, he said. You just need to choose what is right, even when it is hard. As time passed, Jack became more deeply connected to the land. He learned to read the signs of weather, to track animals, and to survive in harsh conditions. The lessons he had learned in the Apache village guided him. He realized that life was not about taking as much as one could, but about living in harmony with the world around him. Every decision mattered, and integrity mattered more than anything else. Despite his quiet life, Jack sometimes encountered men who tried to lure him into schemes of greed. They offered him shares in gold mines, land deals, and opportunities to become wealthy overnight. Each time, Jack refused, politely but firmly. I value honesty and fairness more than wealth, he said. I cannot participate in things that would harm others or take what is not mine. Over the years, Jack noticed that those who sought quick wealth often faced hardship. Mines collapsed, lands failed, and fortunes vanished. Meanwhile, Jack's modest ranch and steady work allowed him to live comfortably, with enough to eat and a safe home. He did not have riches, but he had something rarer, a clear conscience and the respect of those who knew him. At night, Jack often sat outside his small cabin watching the stars. The memory of Apache land returned to him, bringing with it a sense of calm. He thought about the chief, the villagers, and the quiet river where children had played. He knew that his choice to leave the gold untouched had created a bond with the tribe, even if he had never spoken of it again. Occasionally, Jack would hear travelers talk about the gold in Apache land. Some claimed it had disappeared, while others said it was cursed. Jack knew the truth. The gold remained untouched because some things were meant to be respected, not claimed. And in that respect, Jack felt a quiet pride. He had done the right thing, and that mattered far more than any fortune could. One day, a group of men arrived at Jack's ranch, curious about the man who refused gold. They asked him to recount the story, expecting to hear of wild adventures and a miraculous escape. Jack smiled and told them only part of the truth, emphasizing the lessons rather than the treasure. It was not about gold, he said. It was about doing what is right, even when no one else will. The men listened, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others nodding slowly. Jack's words had an effect, though he did not notice it at the time. The lesson of honesty and respect slowly spread among those who knew him, even without the details of the gold. It became a story not of wealth, but of character, a story that would quietly influence others long after Jack was gone. In the evenings, Jack sometimes dreamed of returning to Apache land, not for the gold, but to see the village again. He wondered how the children he had met were growing up, and whether the tribe remembered him. He hoped that his decision had left a positive mark, that the village continued to thrive, and that the river still ran clear and strong. The years passed, and Jack continued his life with quiet dignity. He faced challenges, as every man does, harsh winters, droughts, and the occasional sickness, but he met each one with the same principle that guided him when he first discovered the gold: respect for others, patience, and integrity. The land gave him what he needed, and in return he gave the land his care. Jack's story in those early years after leaving Apache land became a foundation for the man he would become. He learned that courage was not just in facing danger, but in choosing what was right when it was easier to do wrong. He learned that true wealth was measured in trust, friendship, and the peace that comes from living honestly. And he learned that sometimes the smallest acts of respect and honor could have the greatest impact on life, even if the results were not immediately seen. Though he never sought reward or recognition, Jack's integrity quietly set him apart from many others. People who met him sensed his honesty even without knowing the full story. They respected him for his character, not his possessions, and some even chose to follow his example in their own lives. Even as the world around him changed, Jack held on to the lessons of Apache land. The gold he had refused remained untouched in the hills, a symbol of his choice, a reminder that some things in life, honesty, respect, and moral courage, are more valuable than wealth. And though he did not know it yet, the story of his integrity would one day come full circle, in a way he could never have imagined, proving that the seeds of good actions planted quietly could grow into something remarkable over time. After leaving the Apache lands, Jack McAllister settled into a quieter life on the open plains. He chose a small piece of land near a river, where the soil was rich and the grass grew tall. It was not a grand ranch, nor did it hold any promise of sudden wealth, but Jack liked it. It reminded him of the simple life he had always admired, the life that respected the land, honored hard work, and valued honesty above all else. Jack built a modest cabin with his own hands. The wood smelled of pine and earth, and the small fire in the hearth gave warmth to the rooms. He planted vegetables in a tiny garden and dug a well to have water nearby. Life was not easy. There were long days of work, weather to battle, and the occasional threat of wild animals. But Jack faced each challenge with patience and care. He had learned long ago that a person's strength was not measured by the gold they owned, but by how they endured life's trials. Word of Jack's honesty spread slowly among nearby towns and settlements. People remembered the story of the cowboy who had found gold on Apache land and had refused to take it. Though many did not believe the story at first, those who met Jack realized that it was true. He had the same calm demeanor, the same quiet strength, and the same unwavering respect for others. Travelers often stopped by his cabin not to see the gold, which he had never taken, but to hear his advice or share a meal. Jack welcomed them all, never turning anyone away, showing the same kindness he had shown to the Apache tribe. As the years went by, Jack's life was filled with ordinary work and extraordinary lessons. He learned to read the skies to predict storms, to track animals for hunting and safety, and to understand the rhythm of the land. He became skilled at building fences, repairing tools, and taming horses. Each day taught him something new. And though the gold he had left behind was often on his mind, he never regretted his decision. He understood that his true wealth came from the life he was building, the trust he earned, and the respect he gave to others. Jack also learned about the value of community. He helped his neighbors when they faced difficulties, often lending a hand without expecting anything in return. When a family's barn caught fire, he was there with a bucket brigade and hands ready to rebuild. When a farmer's crops failed during a harsh summer, he shared his own harvest. People began to look up to him, not because he was rich or famous, but because he was a man of integrity. They knew that Jack McAllister could be trusted, and that trust, he realized, was more precious than gold. Despite his quiet life, Jack never forgot the Apache tribe. The memory of Chief Dayan's wise eyes, the laughter of the children, and the songs around the fire stayed with him. He often thought about the villagers and hoped they were thriving, that their rivers remained clear and their lands untouched by greed. Sometimes in the stillness of the night he would close his eyes and imagine walking among them again, feeling the cool water of the river, smelling the smoke from their fires, and hearing the stories of their ancestors. One day Jack was visited by a young man named Samuel, who had traveled far to see him. Samuel had heard the story of Jack's honesty and had been inspired to seek him out. "I want to learn from you," Samuel said. "I want to know how to live with integrity in a world that does not always value it." Jack smiled. "Integrity is not taught in a single day, nor is it earned by words alone," he said. "It is built in the small choices you make every day. It is in the work you do, the way you treat others, and the respect you show for the world around you. Sometimes it is hard, sometimes it is lonely, but it is always worth it. Samuel stayed for several weeks, helping Jack with his work and learning from him. He watched how Jack treated the land, the animals, and the people around him. He learned that patience, honesty, and humility were far stronger than force, greed, or anger. By the time Samuel left, he had not only learned practical skills but also absorbed a philosophy of life, one that valued respect, kindness, and moral courage above wealth. During this time, Jack's small ranch began to thrive. He raised cattle and horses, grew vegetables and grains, and repaired fences and buildings for neighbors in exchange for supplies he could not grow himself. Life was hard at times, especially during harsh winters and dry summers, but Jack faced every difficulty with the same principle that had guided him since Apache land. Do what is right, respect others, and take only what belongs to you. Jack's relationship with the local community deepened as the years passed. People came to him not for advice on wealth, but for guidance on honesty, fairness, and responsibility. They admired his calm judgment, his ability to solve disputes fairly, and his unwavering adherence to principle. Jack realized that true leadership did not come from riches or authority, but from character. And in this way, he became a quiet pillar of his community, respected by all who knew him. Even as life grew busier, Jack still remembered the gold he had left behind. But he no longer saw it as a lost opportunity. Instead, it was a symbol of the choice he had made, the choice to honor the land and the Apache people. He understood that the treasure was not the gold itself, but the trust and respect he had earned by doing what was right. That treasure, he realized, would last a lifetime. In the evenings, Jack often sat by the river near his cabin, reflecting on the years that had passed. He watched the water flow, thinking about the journey that had brought him here, about the people he had met, and about the lessons he had learned. He knew that life was unpredictable, that challenges would always arise, but he also knew that a life guided by honesty, respect, and integrity could withstand any storm. Jack sometimes wrote letters to friends he had met on his travels, sharing stories of the land, advice on life, and lessons he had learned. He never mentioned the gold directly, but he spoke of choices, character, and the importance of respecting others. These letters traveled far, reaching people who were inspired by his wisdom. Slowly, Jack's reputation spread, not as a man who had once found gold, but as a man who had made the right choice and lived by it every day. Years passed quietly, and Jack's life settled into a rhythm of work, reflection, and connection to the land. He continued to help neighbors, mentor young travelers, and live simply. Yet, deep in his heart, he wondered about the Apache tribe. Did they remember him? Had the children grown into strong, kind adults? Had the chief and his people continued to honor the land as they always had? These thoughts often filled Jack's dreams at night, reminding him of the quiet bond he had formed with people he had met only briefly. Through all of this, Jack remained humble. He never sought praise or recognition. He did not boast about his honesty or expect reward for his choices. He simply lived by his principles, trusting that good actions, even when unseen, would eventually matter. And in this way, Jack built a life of quiet significance, one that was rich not in gold, but in trust, respect, and meaningful connections. Despite the peaceful rhythm of his life, Jack's past decisions began to ripple outward in unexpected ways. Stories of his integrity reached the ears of others in the region, inspiring them to make better choices, treat others fairly, and respect the land. Jack did not see these effects directly, but he understood that his actions had power far beyond the immediate moment. One honest choice, he realized, could influence countless others, even if no one could measure its full impact. Jack's life became a lesson in patience as well. He had once acted quickly, refusing the gold, and now he waited quietly for life to unfold. He understood that time had a way of rewarding integrity, even if the reward was not immediate or obvious. In his heart, he believed that the right people, the right communities, and the right relationships would eventually recognize and honor what he had done. And so, the years went on. Jack McAllister, the cowboy who had refused gold on Apache land, lived a life of steady work, quiet reflection, and meaningful connection. He never regretted his decision, even when temptation or hardship appeared. He had chosen integrity over wealth, respect over greed, and honor over immediate gain. And in doing so, he created a foundation for something far greater than gold. A life of moral courage, community respect, and lasting influence that would one day come full circle. Life had settled into a steady rhythm for Jack McAllister. His small ranch thrived, and he was respected by everyone in the surrounding settlements. He had learned to live with simplicity and integrity, and while he did not have wealth beyond what he needed, he was content. Each day he worked the land, tended to his animals, and helped his neighbors whenever they asked. Though he often thought of the Apache tribe and the gold he had left untouched, he had long ago accepted that some rewards in life were invisible. They were measured not in gold, but in character and conscience. One warm spring morning, Jack was sitting on the porch of his cabin sharpening a plow blade for the coming planting season. The sun had just risen, and the sky was painted with soft shades of orange and pink. Jack enjoyed these quiet moments, where the world seemed peaceful and full of promise. Suddenly he heard the faint sound of horses approaching from the distance. At first, he thought it was a group of neighbors or travelers passing through. But as the riders came closer, he realized that there was something unusual about them. The group rode with a steady purpose, and Jack noticed their clothing and markings anew. They were Apache. His heart skipped a beat. He had not seen them in 14 years, yet he recognized their presence instantly. The chief of the group, a man who bore a resemblance to the chief Tyan he remembered, rode in front, signaling the others to slow. Jack set down his tools, a mixture of curiosity and nervous anticipation running through him. As they dismounted, Jack approached cautiously, unsure of their intentions. The chief stepped forward, a calm yet powerful presence. He looked at Jack with familiar eyes, eyes that held respect and recognition. "Jack McAllister?" the chief asked in a clear, strong voice. Jack nodded. "Yes, I am Jack," he replied, trying to hide the surprise in his own voice. "It has been a long time." "What brings you here?" The chief smiled faintly. "We have come to repay a debt," he said. The words seemed simple, yet they carried weight that Jack could not fully understand at first. The group behind the chief carried bundles wrapped carefully in cloth, and as they laid them down, Jack saw the unmistakable glimmer of gold. His heart raced, not because of greed, but because he realized the significance of the moment. 14 years had passed since Jack had refused the gold on Apache land. 14 years of living with integrity, of choosing respect over immediate gain, of building a life that mattered beyond wealth. And now the tribe had returned not for vengeance, not to demand payment for intrusion, but to honor the man who had chosen to do the right thing. Jack felt a mixture of humility and disbelief. He had never expected any reward, never even thought that the tribe would remember him. You remembered?" he asked, his voice catching. The chief nodded. "We do not forget those who honor the land and our people. 14 years ago, you chose respect over greed. You could have taken the gold, but you did not. That choice mattered. Today, we honor it." Jack shook his head, overwhelmed by the gesture. He tried to refuse the gift, but the chief insisted. "It is not for you to refuse. This is our way of showing gratitude. You acted with a clear heart. Now we show ours." As the tribe carefully unwrapped the bundles, Jack saw the gold in full view. It was far more than he could have imagined, yet it no longer represented temptation or greed. To him it symbolized respect, trust, and a bond that had lasted over a decade. Jack understood that this gold was more than material wealth. It was a testament to the power of integrity. The chief spoke again, explaining the journey of the gold. "After you left, our people saved what we could, protecting it through harsh winters and difficult times. We never used it, because it was not ours to take. We wanted to return it to the man who showed us respect and honor. Today it comes to you, not as a prize, but as recognition of your character." Jack felt tears welling in his eyes. He had never expected anything like this. All those years of quiet work, patience, and honest living seemed suddenly validated, not because of wealth, but because of the principle that had guided his life. The gold was a symbol, a tangible reminder that doing what is right, even when no one is watching, is always remembered. He turned to the chief and bowed slightly. I do not know what to say," Jack whispered. "I never expected anything in return. I only did what I believed was right." The chief nodded. "That is why we remember you. It is rare to find a person whose heart is clear, whose choices are guided by principle rather than desire. You have given more than gold ever could." The villagers and other members of the tribe had been standing quietly, observing Jack. They stepped forward to greet him, smiling warmly. Children ran to see the man who had once walked among their village, and elders spoke softly to each other, sharing stories of Jack's honesty that had been passed down through generations. Jack felt a deep sense of connection, as if the years and distance had melted away, bringing him back to the land he had respected so long ago. For several days the tribe stayed at Jack's ranch. They shared meals, told stories, and celebrated the bond formed years ago. Jack listened with fascination as they recounted how they had protected the gold, how they had remembered his choice, and how his integrity had inspired younger members of the tribe. He realized that his actions had left an impact far beyond what he could have imagined. One decision, made quietly and without expectation, had created a ripple effect of respect and admiration that lasted over a decade. During their stay, Jack learned more about the tribe's life over the years. He discovered that the village had faced hardships, harsh winters, droughts, and challenges from outsiders. But the community had remained strong. They had remembered the values of respect, honesty, and courage, and Jack's choice had become a symbol of those principles. The tribe explained that his refusal to take the gold had shown them that not all outsiders were selfish or greedy, and that trust could be extended to the right people. Jack felt deeply honored. He realized that the gold, while valuable, was secondary to the bond and respect it represented. The real reward was not the medal itself, but the acknowledgement of his character and the enduring connection he had made with people who had once been strangers. Before the tribe left, the chief spoke to Jack privately. "The world often measures success in wealth, but true success is measured in the respect and trust you earn. You have lived a life that honors both the land and the people. We return this gold not because you need it, but because you deserve recognition for what you have done. Remember this and continue to live as you have." Jack nodded, understanding fully. "I will," he said, his voice steady despite the emotions he felt. "I have always lived by what I believe is right. I will continue to do so, and I will remember your kindness forever." As the tribe rode away, Jack watched them disappear over the horizon. He felt a mixture of awe, gratitude, and humility. 14 years had passed since he had made a single choice to honor the land, yet that choice had created a bond that could not be broken by time or distance. The gold, once a symbol of temptation, had become a symbol of integrity, trust, and the enduring power of doing what is right. In the days that followed, Jack carefully stored the gold, using it wisely to improve his ranch and help his community. He did not indulge in luxury or extravagance, but he made sure that the wealth benefited others as well as himself. He built better fences for neighbors, helped fund supplies for schools, and supported those in need. The gold became a tool for good, a way to extend the lessons of respect and integrity that had been returned to him. Jack often reflected on the events of those remarkable days. He realized that the real lesson was not in the gold itself, but in the understanding that honesty, respect, and moral courage have a value that cannot be measured. The tribe's return had shown him that life has a way of honoring those who live with integrity, even if the reward is delayed or unexpected. From that day forward, Jack lived with a renewed sense of purpose. He continued to work the land, help his neighbors, and guide younger travelers with patience and wisdom. The story of his integrity and the tribe's repayment became a quiet legend, inspiring others to act with honesty and respect. Jack knew that the true treasure was the bond between people, the respect for the land, and the knowledge that doing the right thing always matters, even if the reward takes years to appear. And so, Jack McAllister's life entered a new chapter. He had discovered that integrity could create lasting connections, that respect could overcome time and distance, and that sometimes the smallest act of honor could return in ways beyond imagination. The gold, once left untouched out of principle, had now become a symbol of the enduring power of right choices, a reminder that living honestly and respecting others is always worth more than wealth alone. Jack McAllister sat on the porch of his cabin, the warm evening sun painting the sky with shades of gold and pink. The events of the past few days still filled his mind, and a quiet sense of peace settled over him. 14 years had passed since he had first discovered the gold on Apache land, and now, after all that time, the tribe had returned to honor him. The gold was no longer just metal. It had become a symbol of trust, respect, and the bond between people. Jack understood something he had known all along. Life's true rewards often come not immediately, but in ways that are meaningful and lasting. The gold had helped him improve his ranch and support his neighbors, but Jack did not see it as a fortune. He had always lived simply, and he continued to do so. The money allowed him to make a difference, not indulge himself. He repaired fences, built new barns for neighbors, and bought supplies for those who could not afford them. He helped fund tools and materials for the local school, ensuring children could learn and grow. Jack realized that wealth was best used to strengthen the community and create opportunities for others, rather than to serve only oneself. Yet more than anything, Jack valued the lessons he had learned and the people he had met. Chief Tyan and the Apache tribe had reminded him of the power of integrity, respect, and patience. By acting with honesty, Jack had created bonds that spanned years and distances, and he now saw the results. The trust and friendship he had earned could not be measured in gold. They were far more precious. He often thought of the chief's words, "True success is measured in the respect and trust you earn." Those words stayed with him, guiding every choice he made. Life at the ranch continued quietly, yet it was full of small joys and meaningful moments. Jack found pleasure in the simple tasks of daily work, mending fences, caring for animals, planting crops, and repairing tools. He cherished the mornings when he could watch the sun rise over the hills, the evenings when the river reflected the stars, and the rare quiet moments when he could simply breathe in the fresh air. Each day reminded him that life's greatest treasures were not possessions or gold, but peace, purpose, and meaningful connections. Jack also began to mentor others more intentionally. Young travelers and settlers often sought his advice, drawn by the stories of his honesty and wisdom. He taught them not only practical skills, such as farming, riding, and survival, but also the deeper lessons he had learned over the years. He showed them how to treat others with respect, how to make decisions guided by principle rather than greed, and how to live in harmony with the land. Jack understood that knowledge and integrity could be passed from one person to another, creating ripples that extended far beyond his own life. One evening, a young man named Elias came to the ranch. He had heard the story of Jack and the gold, and hoped to learn from the man himself. "I want to understand how you lived honestly in a world full of greed," Elias said. Jack smiled, seeing a spark of curiosity and determination in the young man's eyes. "It is not always easy," he said. "People will often choose what benefits themselves immediately, but the right choice is not always the easy choice. True honor comes from doing what is right, even when no one is watching, and even when it costs you something." Elias listened carefully as Jack shared stories from his life, including the day he had discovered the gold and the moments he had spent with the Apache tribe. He explained how he had refused to take the treasure, not out of fear, but out of respect for the people and the land. He told Elias how integrity, patience, and humility had shaped the life he had built. Elias nodded slowly, taking in every word. "I think I understand," he said. "It's about more than money or success. It's about doing what is right and respecting others." Jack patted the young man's shoulder. "Exactly," he said. "And remember, the choices you make today will echo in ways you cannot always see. One act of honesty can change lives, even if it takes years for the results to appear." As the years went on, Jack's ranch became more than just a home. It became a center of learning, guidance, and community. People came not only for advice, but also to witness the way Jack lived. His life was a living example of integrity and respect, showing others that one person could make a lasting difference through simple but meaningful choices. Jack often reflected on the Apache tribe and their remarkable gesture. The repayment of the gold had been more than a gift. It had been a recognition of a bond that transcended time, culture, and distance. He realized that the tribe's return had shown him something profound. Actions done with honesty and respect are never forgotten, even when years pass and circumstances change. The gold, once a temptation, had become a symbol of the enduring power of principle and trust. The story of Jack and the Apache tribe gradually spread throughout the surrounding lands. Travelers, settlers, and neighbors shared the tale of the cowboy, who refused gold on sacred land and was later honored for his integrity. Some were inspired to act with more honesty in their own lives. Others simply admired the quiet strength and patience of a man who had lived according to his principles. Jack never sought recognition, but he understood that stories of integrity could influence people in ways no gold ever could. Jack's reflections often took him back to the moment he first met Chief Tyan. He remembered the chief's calm eyes, the way the tribe had welcomed him, and the lessons they had shared. He realized that those few days in the village had changed him forever, shaping the way he lived and guiding the choices he made for the rest of his life.
It was a reminder that sometimes even brief encounters can leave the deepest impact when they are built on respect, honesty, and mutual understanding.
Over time, Jack became known not only for his honesty but also for his wisdom. People sought his counsel in disputes, knowing that he would judge fairly and without bias. He mediated conflicts between neighbors, guided young settlers through difficult decisions, and even helped neighboring tribes and communities work together peacefully. Jack understood that the true measure of a person was not how much wealth they accumulated, but how they used their character and influence to make life better for others. Even in old age, Jack remained active and engaged. He continued to work the land, tend to his animals, and care for his community. The gold, safely stored and wisely used, provided security and opportunity, but never changed the principles he lived by. Jack McAllister had learned the most important lesson of all, that integrity, respect, and moral courage were treasures far greater than anything gold could buy. One evening, as the sun set over the rolling hills, Jack stood on a small rise overlooking his land. He thought of the tribe, of the gold, and of the long journey that had brought him here. He realized that life was a series of choices, some small and some large, and that each decision shaped the future in ways that were often invisible. By choosing to honor the land and its people, he had set into motion a chain of events that had led not only to material reward but also to enduring respect, friendship, and community. Jack smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that the story of the gold and the Apache tribe would live on, not just as a tale of wealth, but as a lesson in character. He understood that the true legacy of a person is not measured in possessions, but in the lives they touch, the respect they earn, and the choices they make when no one is watching. And so Jack McAllister lived out the rest of his days in peace, dignity, and quiet happiness. The gold he had refused 14 years earlier had come full circle. But it was not the gold itself that mattered. It was the integrity, the trust, and the respect that had returned to him. He had lived a life guided by principle, and in doing so he had left a lasting mark on the world around him. Even long after he was gone, the story of Jack and the Apache tribe continued to inspire others. People remembered the cowboy who chose honesty over wealth, who respected the land and its people, and whose integrity had been repaid in a way he never expected. His life became a quiet legend, a reminder that true treasure is not measured in gold, but in the character and choices of a person. And in that story, Jack's legacy lived on, a legacy of courage, honor, and the understanding that doing the right thing, even when it seems small or unseen, can echo across time, creating ripples that last far longer than a lifetime.